Hi, welcome to Feast Days. I'm your host, Mark Grapengater, where we have conversations on hospitality and feasting in the church. We are so grateful to have Megan Hackman join us today, who is a church planter. She's a pastor in Port Orchard, Washington, and more importantly, she's a dear friend of mine. So thank you for joining us, Megan. How are you this morning?
Good to be with you, Mark. I'm good.
Your garden looks amazing behind you.
Thank you. You can't see the demolition that the deer did last night, but we're here.
I feel like we could run on that metaphor for a little bit as well.
I
know. So you're in Port Orchard, Washington. Can you tell us a little bit about Port Orchard?
Yeah, we are. If you were standing in Seattle looking west over the water, you'd be looking out of the peninsula where Port Orchard is. We're a great working town with kind of split between people who've been living here for generations and people who are passing through, either getting their first house or coming through the Navy. It's a beautiful waterfront, port and orchard kind of town. It's great.
Yeah, wonderful. How did you get there? What was your call to move to Port Orchard? Where were you before?
Yeah, well, I have relational roots here. I was a Navy kid. And so my dad's Navy family, put that in quotes, retired here. And so it was a relational link back to what does it look like to put down roots? And we thought we should look where we have friends and family. And so we ended up south of here first in Gig Harbor, Washington for about a decade. And then saw a lot of spiritual hunger, this is a term, I use the word kingdom imagination. I saw people who could see the kingdom of heaven, who may or may not know Jesus, up in Port Orchard, and our church sent me out to start a new community of faith here in Port Orchard.
That is awesome. So you bought your house and you kind of inherited many garden beds. I've been there. As I said, I can see that it's beautiful and it's really wonderful walking around. But tell us about your garden.
So my garden has become quite the gift. I guess I had green thumb in my blood, but didn't really know it until I moved out here. And I found that being in the garden is a deep connection for me with the Lord. I think that's part of why we connect, Mark, right? Is about food and the slow way of the kingdom and gathering people around. And so there were about 20 raised beds here, most of which were empty. Some berries when I arrived. And so learning to cultivate those, and COVID gave me time to be a gardener and to learn how it works. And so I found that as someone who is often a high achiever, goes for what's growing, what can happen, the garden is a beautiful, humble reminder and actually an easy place for me to be a learner, to go, okay, well, the deer took it. I mean, that doesn't mean I'm going to sleep in late. I'm going to come out and see if I can get them. But it's a good place for me to learn that it's not all on me. That we live in the framework of believing that there's a God in heaven, right? So we sow the seed and he sends the water and the rain and he makes it grow. And so as a church planter, having that tangible lesson year over year through the garden, that I am a sower, I am not the one who makes it grow, is a really powerful, important, tactile way to live, both as a church planter as a human being.
And if I remember right, you had one of your neighbors come over and help you walk through the garden and talk with you. Is that right?
Oh my gosh, yes. This is a multi-generational neighbor living kind of way. So at the top of the hill one day in COVID, it was one of those days where everything had to happen like to the minute. And one of those things was getting my run in and getting Larry's run in. And we couldn't do those at the same time because we also parent. And so he was at the top of the hill and I could see he got caught by a neighbor and it was going to take forever. And so that conversation was, and so I actually blessed that in my mind. Like, Lord, that's actually the most important thing we're doing here. And we'll talk about that too, is life with our neighbors. And so thank you for that interruption and help me figure out what the rest of the day looks like for me. So finally, later, I got to go out much later than I thought. And at the top of the hill, there's this sweet British couple who said, do you know what's that down the lane? Love my British accent, right? And I was like, "It's just my house." And she's like, "Oh, I'm so curious." I'm like, "Would you like to walk down?" And so, as I walked Ginny down my property, her husband whispered to me as he saw the gardens. He's like, "Do you ever need help with the gardens?" I said, "I do." And he said, "She's been praying for years, for 2 years since they moved in, for a garden to work. And if you asked her, she'd come and help you." And so Ginny has taught me so much about the garden. My next door neighbor, who's about my age, has taught me a lot about plant propagation, given me a lot of perennials. It's one of the gifts of the garden. It's the gifts and ministry of the gospel that it just keeps multiplying. So
Mhm.
if you're somebody who has a garden, you have garden to share.
Yeah.
And so it's been a work of community,
And
labor of
you've
love.
been able to have a lot of faith conversations out of those shoulder to shoulder moments and working in the garden
Oh,
together, right?
sure.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, this is where life gets unpacked. You're taking a hoary knife to, attack some crocosmia that went nuts. And then you're talking about um, what feels overgrown and hardened in your life. And how did you become, how do we become people who, um, yeah, needed community to help us grow? When did things get overgrown? It just goes there really naturally.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was thinking,
But more
yeah, go ahead.
I would just say that, more often than not, it's really that the Lord needs to talk to me.
Tell me more.
So, sometimes I get the chance to talk to other people in the garden, and that's beautiful. Sometimes it's just the gift of deeper shared life, um, in that shoulder to shoulder work. But more often, it's the Lord talking to me. Yeah.
No,
So,
no.
mhm,
S as I was thinking about your garden and I was thinking about Port Orchard, I realized they're basically the same thing, like a garden and an orchard. So
mhm,
how did that roll out? What does the ministry look like as you've kind of expanded it from, not expanded it, but taken kind of the garden metaphor into the rest of Port Orchard? What is Port Orchard like?
sure.
I know there's been some
Okay.
challenges there. So what has that been like?
Well, let me see if I can link a couple things
Yeah.
together. So, we do now have a community of faith that worships on Sunday
Hmm.
morning in some ways like a traditional church, and we always have a moment of connection with people around you, and we try to make that easier. For we are a more introverted community, so trying to make that a little more easy for people. We always ask a question. So this Sunday's question was, what is something that would be worth waiting for 5 years? And a little deeper question than usually.
Was it a
Normally it's like,
COVID
do you like
Was it like,
fireworks or
yeah.
not? Right?
Yeah.
Well, we're in a wisdom series, Proverbs, and so just thinking about things that take slow, the
Yeah.
kingdom slow, and so sometimes one of the rubrics for a good decision is the slow decision might be the better option. So that's where that came from. But what I was reflecting on was 5 years ago is 2020, and um, so um, Port Orchard and reflection. Um, it's taken a long time to get to know the community. I think that's what I wanted to say. I thought I knew Port Orchard because I've been coming here for since I was 21, to visit family, and I thought I had a good impression of the community. But what I've learned is that you don't actually know the community until you've walked it, till you can name the birds that are singing, till you can name the trees that are growing, till you can name the people who live in the houses up and down. It's that deeper knowledge, that listening to the Lord for place, that actually is the beginning of saying, maybe I can see how the Lord would want to speak to this community. So
Hmm.
I feel like I'm a baby. It's worth 5 years to find out how to live in a community. I've come to really value rootedness, um, and the people who are rooted here. So takes time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that where we
You
are going?
yeah, and how
Yeah.
like so we were talking last week about how you had planned a big launch. COVID
Hmm.
happened. So walk us
Hmm.
through kind of your timeline and how your ministry
Hmm.
shifted in you know, everything shifted in COVID obviously, but how specifically for you guys in Port Orchard.
Thank you. So, m I don't M Mark, I don't know how much of your story you're gonna unpack on this podcast, but we kinda started the church planting journey in similar
Hmm.
timelines, and I would say 5 years later, neither of us are where we thought we would be, right?
Right.
So, when we went through a church planting assessment, which is like a screening for if church planting is a good fit for you, there was really only one model for church planting. Now, you could like come off of a mother church or you could parachute in, but at the end of the day, when you use the language of launching a church, what they meant was you have a Sunday morning service
Yep.
that is double the size of your launch team.
Yeah.
And, um, and so there are all these metrics. There were charts
Yeah.
on, you do this, 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 and then you have launched a church, and this is what it looks like to do that. And so I'm a good soldier. You tell me what the plan is, and I can probably execute the plan. And so that's the plan we were executing. And so we had a launch team, and I mean we were deeply invested in discipleship. Like we knew all that language, right? But the goal of the launch was to launch a Sunday service. That's when we were going to be a church.
Yeah.
And so I was in on that, and it was good, and doors were opening, and all those things. And so we thought Easter 2020 we were going to launch the church.
How long had you been in Port Orchard at that point?
Been praying here since May of 2018.
Okay. Yeah.
So about 2 years later,
Yeah.
a lot of in between. We took a slower route, which mercies. Um, So when 2020 when COVID hits, and I'm in the state of Washington, and that means things, it was not going to be the definition of a church that we had a Sunday morning
Right.
service
Yeah.
in 2020. And it was a tremendous mercy. So what ended up happening was us going, okay, well, if getting together in a building for Sunday morning for an hour is not the definition of a church, then what is? And so my time changed. I became walking, a walking person. I noticed that because I have roots 20 minutes south, there were all these high school students who are now college students who are now home but didn't want to be. They'd had a taste of living outside of home.
Yeah.
And because I was just adjacent enough to not be home, but to,
Yeah.
right? Um, but to have had some trust and some relationship with them, they ended up hanging out a lot. And I, um, I went and said, "Okay, if I'm not paying for rent for a building, can I just hire 5 of these students, like 10 hours a week, and get them doing work that is kind of adjacent to what they're studying in school, connect them with mentors?" Then the neighbors that I talked about who are gardening started helping me teach them how to make food,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
This is where we started crossing over into direct hospitality, right?
Yeah.
So I've got this great deck. My computer's currently propped up on a grill, right? Like I can feed people outside. We can
Yeah.
do this safely, right? And so I asked my neighbors who were in different places with God, had high values for hospitality, if they would teach these students with me how to cook for 10 people, 12 people
Hmm.
for $30.
Yeah.
So I started pairing them up to sous chef. And then I just asked them, what are the kind of conversations that you want to have? Right. So there's these 5 young adults and a couple of the staff. And so they wanted to talk about like, how do you become an adult with your parents? Um, how do I find a church? How do you leave a church? That was an interesting
Yeah.
conversation. How did I make my faith my own? And then Larry and I are really practiced through seminary and beyond in rule of life, the ways of Jesus, the rhythms and routines that keep us connected to the faith. So we gave them some of that and rule of life and stuff. And then at the end of that time, I went, man, this is actually what it looks like to form the church, right?
Yeah.
Obviously I'm not opposed to Sunday morning. We gather on Sunday mornings. But there was something that we were missing in pace and priority when Sunday morning became what church was about. So now we have that expanded out to a young adult residency, place that we have for uh, young adults to live while they're figuring out their place and their purpose and God's presence. And um, they're who their people are, and we do have a Sunday morning service, and we have a lot of feasting. We eat a lot.
Yeah.
So it became very culture forming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm curious of like what the change was. Maybe it was just internal and philosophical for how you approached it, but what was the change that took place for you in the definition of church or what church looked like
Mm,
when you decentralized the Sunday morning worship service?
mhm, mhm. I don't think I have the, like, book ready chapter heading answer for that.
Yeah.
It was just permission giving.
Yeah.
Like, once it didn't have to it couldn't be Sunday morning,
Hmm.
right? So, we were gonna meet in a school in March of 2020. The first time we were allowed to meet in the school was, um, gosh, when did we move in? January of 2024,
Oh, wow.
okay?
Yeah.
So the schools weren't open to me. Like I couldn't get in because of our protocols around COVID. So I mean, we met in 10 places. The school ended up being our 10th location that we met in. Um, but it was just permission giving to go. Okay, if it isn't that, what else could it be?
Yeah.
And the permission to try. And I hope I never vlog again. You can hold me to that. But the college students taught me how to do that, to try to connect with people. Um, it was just permission giving to say what else is the loci of the kingdom of heaven among us. Where else do we experience God's presence? I think we experience God's presence significantly in a gathered worship experience where
Hmm.
we're focusing together our attention on God in heaven, and we're confessing sin, and we're receiving assurance of pardon, and we practice Lectio Divina. We practice listening to the word together in community, and we practice prophetical prayer and listening to what God has to say to us when we gather in that unique group of people on that unique day. And so all of those things are holy and good. And maybe they have become more of the loci than I want to admit for Kitsap House now. Um, but it gave us permission to experiment and gave us the culture of trying
Hmm.
and connecting with the historical church and what are other ways that people have connected through the years. And so that's been a gift.
Yeah. I was going to ask how it reshaped your Sunday morning, but I think
Hmm.
you answer that with like
Hmm.
Lectio Divina, which is not a
Hmm.
typical, large church gathering thing to
Right.
do, or
Right.
listening together as a community, unless you're in like the Quaker, tradition. So
Uh-huh.
is there any other standouts that like how it
Yeah,
reshaped your
communion's in
Sunday?
the center
Yeah.
of what we do. I think we are gonna do communion every Sunday anyway, but the
Hmm.
the table became central. It's literally the center of our gathering.
Yeah.
Our chairs are around it. And so, um, and that came out of meeting in a house and for a season, and yeah, the formation of prayer has taken a long time. That was 5 years worth waiting for.
Hmm.
Having a prayer team that knows how to listen, to wait on the Lord, to speak back what they think they hear, to discern that in community. Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, what a gift. But that was because we met in around a fire pit for a year of Sunday mornings just to pray
Yeah.
and taught people how to pray.
Yep.
And so Sunday mornings started with prayer. And then the next thing we did on Sunday mornings was Alpha. Like as soon as
Hmm.
we got a building, we did Alpha on Sunday mornings with brunch. Because I wanted to communicate. We haven't been waiting to worship on Sunday morning. We've been waiting to share Jesus in community.
Yeah.
And so let's let that. So then Alpha shaped our Sunday morning because
Yeah.
that's around a meal, it's around a conversation, around people expecting people to come asking questions and
Yeah.
all those things.
Yeah. So we skipped over. I can't even believe that I did this, but the church is called Kitsap House. That
Mhm.
is not,
Mhm.
again, that's very like Seattle, like Pacific Northwest,
Yeah.
like the painted
Yeah, Siri
door,
doesn't know
or
what Kitsap House is. I mean, how many like she can't do audio Kitsap. She can't
yeah.
get the word.
So
Yeah.
where did this name come from?
Yes. Okay. Well, Kitsap is the name of our county, which
Okay.
came from amalgamation of native languages that was kind of a hybrid of a couple of the native languages coming together. So Kitsap means brave, and Seattle, Chief Seattle, his second in command was Kitsap, and
Ah,
so Seattle got named for the east side of the water, and then Kitsap the west side. So
okay.
that's where our name comes from. And the house where I said we have young adults living
Hmm.
is on Kitsap Street, and it's literally a house.
Yeah.
And when we made the shift from, we're still completely connected to our mother church in Gig Harbor, but when they gave us permission to really incarnate locally, including with our name, um, we were already connecting with people who really had complex relationships with the church, like capital C church
Hmm.
and the word church. And so we look to scripture to say, how else could we authentically say we're the community of faith? What's a historical way that we can talk about that? So um, the language from the Greek of oikos.
Yeah.
If we were a church plant 15 years ago, we probably would have
We
called
should
ourselves
probably call it
oikos.
oikos. Yeah.
Mhm. Uh-huh, uh-huh. But that language of house or household or family of God all gets wrapped up in the language of house. So it's a way to honor the biblical language of the promise of the Spirit filling the gathering of the believers
Hmm.
and not actually call ourselves church.
Yeah.
So Kitsap is where we are. We're localized. We're embraced a more parish model of living, and then house or community of faith. So we
How's,
like to talk
yeah,
about our
go ahead.
so, you know, you gotta every church planter's gotta get out there. Well, vision statement, right? So we are a
Hmm.
church for our neighbors,
Yeah.
seeking God's shalom in our neighborhoods. So that allow the language of house allows us to talk about neighborhood, and Kitsap allows us to talk about our neighbors, where we are.
Well, and being a actual house while being
Uh
the
huh.
oikos
Uh
of the
huh.
Lord, kind of like it situates you on a street in and amongst
Hmm.
people rather than a place where people are going to. And the house, how much has the house become like a gathering place in the community? And I know you guys met there for worship
Hmm.
and then told you couldn't.
Hmm.
So what is that?
Hmm.
What does that look like for
Well,
you guys?
Mark, you're publicizing this in video. So let me let me give you the clean answer. The house is primarily a residence.
Fair.
Okay. And so the residents often host gatherings,
Yeah,
just as you would in your own house.
exactly. Yeah.
Um, Actually, that was a really interesting conversation. Let me see if I can honor that in a way as if um, this now acquaintance of mine would be listening to this. I got a call on the 23rd of December after we'd had 24 hours of prayer for the winter solstice,
Mm.
which we're people who are spiritual but not religious. And so we often connect to people through the seasons. I was just
Hmm.
reading this morning in Psalm 104 that the Lord set the moon and the stars for the seasons, right? So
Right.
I, I'm not going off the deep end here, but I'm just really connecting with it's a dark season here. It's
Yeah.
literally quite dark. And so we spend it in prayer, and we pray, and we offer God our griefs from the year and what we're having a hard time letting go. And so we were doing that at 7:03 on the 22nd on the solstice. And the next day, I got a call from a government employee who happens to work in the alley off the back of the house, saying that what we were doing, we weren't allowed to be doing. And so, because the house is not coded for assemblage.
Right.
So, we're actually currently, I'm going to go this morning and have a check made out, cashier's check for more money than I've had in a check before, to purchase a building to be used as a community space for gathering because we are limited in the coding of the house
Right.
for gathering. Um, but it has been, I mean, the mayor walks by between his house and downtown every day, and I really feel connected to the store owners, and we're part of the Bay Street Association or Downtown Association, and that's a place that we are deeply invested and rooted and seek the thriving of the city. And we can do that because we are the neighbor
Yeah.
of downtown. So we're authentically located and rooted there. And I give a lot of credit to Maddie, who is a seminarian who's on staff with us, who lives there and has lived there for 3 years, and she's so invested and gets it. And those are her people and it's her place. And
Yeah.
she owns that.
What does the residency program look like with that house and what you
Hmm.
guys are doing in Port Orchard?
Yeah. So we have space for 6 young adults to live for effectively an academic year, like August to June,
Mhm.
to spend a year investing in finding their people, their place, God's presence, and their purpose.
Mhm.
Um, so we're going to have our 5th year of residence moving in this
Yeah.
fall. And what we have learned is 4th year, fifth year. We have learned that the resident that seems to work best, if you will, is the person who's vocationally seeking, who's either between high school and college or between college and what's next, or like we had somebody coming back from Peace Corps.
Mm.
But the center of that is that there's a giant dining room table in the center of the house, and like everything happens at the dining room
Yep.
table, right? Alpha
Mhm.
happens at the dining room table. Session meetings happen at the dining room table, right? Like
Yep.
the Hackmans had a bunch of leftovers. Send a group text out who's coming down because I'm making some sort of random taco for lunch. Um, we open the scripture we call it bread and word on Tuesdays at noon. Whoever's around, I get everybody's input on the text that's coming up from that Sunday. What do they see?
Mhm.
How do they think it connects with God? What seems relevant to them? What seems relevant to us? And so, in that way, it's the locus of community. It's how people know us, like in downtown Port Orchard. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, the church with the house downtown." Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So
Church with it's Kitsap House, but yeah.
yeah,
With the house. Yeah. How
uh-huh.
has, having a house, being in a garden, you had
Hmm.
planned a big launch and then COVID, and I think if I remember right, you slowed down, you started walking the
Hmm.
neighborhood in your community.
Hmm.
How's that
Hmm.
affected your theology, your philosophy of ministry, how you approach your role as a pastor?
Oh man, so much. Um, my personal rhythms have changed.
In what
I live
ways?
in a much smaller footprint
Mhm.
than I did before. In a real in a really intentional way, in a holy way. Um, I I I warned you we're in a series on Proverbs, right? So, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and I have a much smaller view of myself and I think a really healthy way. Um, my cedar trees are going to far outlast me, right? I bear fruit off of raspberry plants that I did not plant. 10 cups a day right now. Hello.
Oh, wow.
It's awesome. And so that's really changed my philosophy of ministry. Bigger, better, faster. I didn't think anything of that. I celebrated big and I celebrated fast. And now I know that uh, bigger, better, faster is often also short lived.
Yeah.
My personal philosophy of ministry, it's getting really challenged right now. I think I know I have what the scripture would call apostolic gifts. I'm currently working on understanding the apostle, prophet, evangelist, shepherd, teacher kind of rubric. I'm working on understanding that better with some of the people in our community that are either elders or like I see them as spiritual leaders for me. And so I'm trying to understand how could someone with apostolic gifts who loves to start up new things,
Yep.
um, how does somebody with that stay in one place for a long time? I'm a Navy kid. I've never lived anywhere longer than 7 years.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that. And so, but I see the wisdom and the rootedness, but what's my role? And so philosophy of ministry, I'm really looking at what does shared leadership look like if you are, I'm not going to get the language right pulled up right now. So this friend of mine who's helping me He's just come out of leadership of a large international organization. And they talk about leadership that's shared. I'm just going to
Yeah.
use that simple language, but there's actually a technical word for it. But where you wouldn't have a leader, you'd have like three leaders.
Yeah.
And I don't know. So that philosophy of ministry is changing quite a bit.
Is that stretching for you to have three
Yeah,
leaders
I think.
instead of just you?
Oh no, but
No. Okay.
I
Yeah.
think no. Oh no, no, no. I'm I love collaborative leadership.
Okay.
I am, yeah. One of the gifts of kind of the way that we church plant within the denomination that I'm in is there's not just one model, right? So, um, I said, "Oh gosh, don't send me out as a teaching elder for evangelism and parachute drop me, and then let me decide if somebody's ready for baptism, or let me decide who's a member. Like that doesn't work for me at all."
Yeah.
And so, luckily, my mother church said, "Okay, well, if you're going to go out and incarnate the gospel uniquely in Port Orchard, you're welcome to handpick elders. Just like look
That's
around and
amazing.
ask, and you can ask anybody you want to
Yeah.
go with you." I was like, "Okay," so I did. I don't want to do anything without a session. I
Yeah.
don't. I am very aware of human frailty. I'm very aware of what pride and leadership can do, and the corruption of a person's individual character. And
Hmm.
so I don't want to play that game.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What's stretching is the idea of staying.
The staying. Yeah. Why?
hmm hmm it's not how I grew up. Like, I actually love new culture. I love new places. I love new people. I love change.
Hmm.
Um, One of the gifts of the garden is both like the berries that are there every year, but then the 10 beds that are empty every year. And what are we going to plant?
Yeah.
What grew well? What do I want to do again? What did I like to taste? What do I want to try new?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So that's the stretch is what does it look like to stay? Yeah.
Is there fear in that of what might not be there,
Mark, this is not
or?
a counseling session. This is supposed to be a podcast.
Yeah, I'm not meaning to go there. I'm just curious. So these were not questions in my
Oh
notes.
my
So
gosh. I don't know. Can I not
that's fine.
chase that one down? Okay. Oh, I don't know. So the church that planted us, the senior pastor there was really faithful in ministry. You know, was it? I think it was over 30 years by the time he left. I don't know. I don't know if I have that in me.
Hmm.
Um, but man, I'm with the people that right now they let me shift and change and try new things. And so the house that we're going to be buying tomorrow.
Yeah, you're closing on a house tomorrow. Not you personally, but the church.
The church,
Yeah.
right? We're calling it Mitchell House
Hmm.
because it's on Mitchell Street.
There you go.
Got this. We're really creative.
You have your rubric, and this is what it is
Yeah.
now.
It's not actually a house.
Yeah.
It's a community. It was a former community center that needs restoration.
Yeah.
So we want to restore it for the community.
Yeah.
To experience a living parable of what it is to walk into Hope Restored. Our community has more boarded up buildings than I would like anyone to see if they drive around.
Hmm.
You know, you want to put your best face forward in a community, and there's a lot of boarded up buildings, and this is one of them. And so we wanted to restore it for the community. So we're not calling it Kitsap House because we believe that we are stewarding this gift for the community. And so we wanted to give it a name so that if the school district wanted to meet there, they don't have to, these are, really interesting times out here. So they don't have to communicate we're meeting at a church. So we're meeting at Mitchell House,
Hmm.
this neighborhood building that Kitsap House worships in. Kitsap House owns, but we want it to be a neighborhood center of community, so we're calling it Mental Health.
Why?
So.
I'm getting to somewhere, but I'm going to ask it as if I don't know, or at least I'm guessing, and they're at what the answer is.
Okay.
To buy a community space or a former community center, why is that important? And I think where I'm going is what, in my mind, at least the connection I make is that there have been no bonds passed in that community in 30 years or something like that. Is that correct?
Oh, right, with the schools.
Yeah. And so for you guys
Yeah.
restoring this place, this thing that was, you know. Do you
Yeah,
see
okay,
that?
so you're
Let me
you're
rephrase.
yeah, you're making a jump. You're
Yeah.
making a
Is
jump,
there a
so let me
connection there
help
or no
let me
for
help make the
you?
jump.
Yeah.
Um, it's not as direct a link as you're wanting to
Okay.
make there.
Yeah.
So our schools have not passed a bond in, I think it's 33 years now, even though we have property to build on, and it's just one of our community struggles. Um, so our schools need a lot of space. We have the most kids per square foot of any
Oh, wow.
high
Yeah.
school in the state, and so we're crowded. We're really crowded. Um, and so this building is in the center of a lot of education centers for Port Orchard, for South Kitsap, really. And so we are offering it to the school district as a potential space
Hmm.
for them to use as they're looking to expand some programs. At the moment, they're going for a bond, and we're going with them.
Yeah.
So I'm voting. So I'll put that out, and so hopefully we'll get the bond and not need the space. But one of the hopes is that we can provide in its restoration, that it can provide space that the community actually needs,
Yeah.
like to meet the actual needs of the neighborhood. And one of those big needs is space for our schools.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Was that something that you guys wanted to do? Like look at what the needs of the community were going to Port
Gosh, yeah,
Orchard? Okay. Yeah. So that wasn't a new development
yeah.
for you.
Okay, no, let me give Tommy Allen a shout out right
Yeah.
here. Okay, so Tommy has these amazing conversation opening questions, and this is how I came into the community, right?
Hmm.
So I came personally, thinking about, is there a spiritual hunger in other people with a kingdom imagination? Um, but the questions that I asked in the conversation were Tommy's
Okay.
questions. So I came in and I said, "What do you love about your community?
Yep.
What is your community's biggest need? If you could imagine a church
Yeah.
that was partnering with you to meet the needs of the community, and allow that to be a big if, but if you could imagine that there was a church that would partner with you to meet the needs of the community, what would that church look like? And then who else can I ask?" And so, you just ask for 20 minutes, and I'm new to the community. And gosh, it is an amazing study. It is the best way to move into a new community. I would do that whether I was a church planner or not.
Yeah.
Like, it's just such a great way to actually see what's happening in the community. So that put me into the rooms of the government, the school district, the hospital system, small businesses, um, retired legislators and educators, and such great cultural insight. So I got to listen to what the needs of the neighborhood are, and I got to hear what the potential conversations could look like if, as a church, we came to try to see if we could meet the needs of our neighbors together. And I learned, first of all, how difficult that was going to be, because there were quite a few conversations where it started with, "No, I could not imagine a church," and actually, it would be inappropriate for a church to
Oh,
meet
wow.
these needs in our community. So, so I got a lot of insight into, and then just the fact that we'd met in 10 locations, I know there's space need. Just
Yeah.
like the fact, like, gathered community, bringing people out of isolation. There
Hmm.
are very few pieces. If you're listening and you're in Port Orchard and you need a place to meet, I'll share my spreadsheet with you.
When you first said 10, I thought, are there 10 spaces in Port Orchard where one could meet? Because they're full of businesses and things already. So, from
When
my
you need
time here,
parts,
yeah. What's that?
when you're recording in parts.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, we met in some outside spaces. It's tough.
Yeah, yeah. Um, what is um I guess what's your hope for both Kitsap House and Port Orchard? Um, yeah, what's your hope for that?
Oh man. Well, I mean, restoration is a big word that we're living into right now.
Hmm.
So on both, like, a meta level, an interpersonal level, and a spiritual level, I would really love to see more restoration. Um, the tricky part is the thing that's so nuanced and layered, and I'm not totally sure my role in it is I don't mean gentrification in terms of pushing out people who are living here or making it um, unaffordable
Right.
to live here, right? But I do mean in a very practical sense, like the community building's not boarded up,
Hmm.
um, our school's not falling down,
Yeah.
our like there's a one of the like most prime locations buildings in Port Orchard is a restaurant called Myries that's been burned out as long as I've lived here,
Wow.
you know? And so there's a there's just like a longing to see things function,
Yeah.
like beauty restored. I'd love to be able to swim in the Puget Sound,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, if we're gonna talk crazy, right? And then, like, interpersonally, I had a next door neighbor who was a meth addict and dealer for a year, and that was
Yeah.
wicked hard. And so the interpersonal restoration of neighbors and of I mean, I don't want any drugs in my community, so
Yeah.
like the restoration of people and interpersonal and intergenerational. And then of course for me, I think the fear of the Lord is the foundation of wisdom, right? And so, allowing the Lord to have his place established in our community for his authority, his kingdom, his definition of good, um, and his definition of wealth and community to really thrive here. That's the meta. That's the meta restoration, right?
Yeah.
And he's invited us to partner with him in that incredible restoration work that he's promised once and for all time. And I think by his spirit, he has promised now, right? So one of the proverbs I was reading today, right? Send forth your breath, your spirit, and renew the face of the earth will be renewed,
Mm.
right? So that's the meta. I want to see renewal. I
Hmm.
believe it comes by his spirit. I believe it's the work of the people. I believe that we can partner with people in work of shalom as they come to know the restorer,
Hmm.
right? Um, so that's what I want to see. And as long as the Lord keeps that burden for me on this neighborhood, this is where I'm going to be working.
Yeah. Yeah. What has this shift, if you will, from big launch to long-term
Hmm.
cultivation? What has that cultivated in the church, like in your people that you have
Mm.
gathered? Yes, you have. We have an extra gas this morning.
What does that cultivate? First of all, the word cultivated is such a good word, right?
Hmm.
Because oh, hi. So my cat meowed,
Yeah.
and then I heard a meow from inside,
Oh.
and it was my daughter. What has that cultivated? So cultivated is a good word because there's so much intention with it, right? Like
Hmm.
when it's so multi-step, it's so multi-processed. What is it cultivated? Um, well, relationship.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's cultivated some like holy jealous pride of place to see um, the people who stayed, who keep staying. I think there's some resilience in us,
Mm.
like determination.
Yeah.
You know, we laughed when I first got on the call because I had my paintball gun like
Hmm.
within view because I've been up since in the fours hunting, making sure the deer aren't on my property. It's fierce to
Yeah.
cultivate a garden
Yeah.
and to protect it and to work it. And I want to say we're such a baby, Mark.
Hmm.
Time will have to tell if we're really perseverant. But that's what I want to believe, is that that's what it's cultivating us, is a fierceness, a resiliency, a perennial resiliency,
Yeah.
that if this isn't the year that we bear fruit, it's because the roots are growing
Hmm.
and the conditions might be different next year, So I hope I think that's what's growing in me.
Yeah.
I don't define fruitfulness just as our Sunday morning growing,
Yeah. 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 It's great.
because I couldn't.
No.
That's not how I
Yeah.
could start. So
Well,
good.
well, and our metrics. I mean, we in our ministry that we are doing, that we have done, we would have been falling short big time if our metrics were only Sunday morning. And even just the challenge of moving 10 places in 5-ish years or so, that would
Mhm.
feel,
Mhm.
to me, would feel like we're not doing what we're supposed to. We're not meeting the metrics that we have on us. And so what are the fruits that are being cultivated or being born, and what are we seeing? And again, like, as you
Mhm.
said, establishing roots, that's a big one. That's a big one. So
Mhm. I just want to say all of those moves were good for
yeah,
us.
yeah.
I just feel like that's important to say. Like,
Hmm.
they're hard, but I don't look back and go, that's not my primary look back.
Right, right.
Is that it was hard. My primary look back is it was good.
Yeah, good.
I've preached with a guy like lifting dumbbells in the
That's
background,
right.
dropping F bombs and like dropping the weights. And I've had to like incorporate that right in to the gathering. I mean, imagine doing Lectio
The-
Divina, and you're going like, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and you're going, "Ugh, ugh," right? Like that's what you're hearing in the background.
I mean, I see some overlap there, so I think
It's not too hard.
yeah.
And so there would be times, I think my go-to line was like, well, if you can hear of the word of the Lord through this is good practice for Monday morning.
That seems what this is what I was thinking. I lost my train of thought, but the everydayness of faith is what it feels like was cultivated, from my perspective at least, of like,
Okay.
it's not just when we gather on Sundays, but it's when we're when someone's lifting in the gym behind us, or when we're driving, or we're going by a place that we've longed to see restored, or our neighbors and what's going on around us. I mean, it just seems like that has, to me, I'm hearing that as a theme of what God is doing still
Yes,
in
sir.
you guys.
Hmm.
So for sure.
Yeah. I had written down just a little something beforehand, just to talk a tiny bit more about hospitality.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I I'd written down this little phrase after we last spoke, that sometimes the side quest becomes the plan.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's good. Tell me more.
And so I just wanna affirm that for the sake of anybody listening who like might either find themselves pulled to something that feels off track, or having to, suddenly change direction,
Hmm.
right? So having those interns at my house was a total side quest. It was a time filler for
Hmm.
them and for us. Like, how can we help this semester be meaningful for them?
Yeah.
How could I steward the funds I've been given for this semester? And then the dining room table at my house on my porch, making meals with my neighbors as they were discovering where they wanted to land in their faith,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
While helping these young adults talk about how to become adults, right? And how to cook on the cheap. Like, that has become the thing we do.
Yeah.
We talk about Jesus, we talk about spirituality around meals, is what we do. So we do it on Sunday morning around communion.
Hmm.
We do it quarterly, seasonally in feasts with our neighbors. We do it around Alpha. We do Breakfast in the Way.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a fire pit night on Thursday with people who are reading the Gospel of Mark and going, what the heck? And so that became central. But it was the side quest. It was the fill in. It was the, oh shoot. It was the, like, what are we doing? what can I do? And now it's central culture. And so I'm grateful.
Yeah. And it sounds like I make the connection back to the prayer. So you made room, which is one definition of hospitality, for God to come and speak. And then when the room was made, the space was there. You saw what God was bringing before you to be able to do. And then you heeded his call because you were well connected with him in that as well.
And getting so much joy out of it.
Yeah.
There's joy in that connection.
Well, instead of saying, I need to get my run in, or my husband needs to get his run in, let's get these neighbors out of here, you know.
Right. I was following the joy of that connection and and then going, well, what if that was in the center?
Yeah. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's fun.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at.
Thank you, Megan.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story and for cultivating what God has for you and listening and sharing that with us as well. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us. I look forward to listening to how everybody else is feasting and hosting.
It'll be wonderful. So it's the new side quest right now. So
the new side quest. Let's see where it goes.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you so much, Megan. This has been Feast Days, conversations on hospitality and feasting in the church. It is a podcast production from The Table Project. I'm your host, Mark Grapengater. This episode has been produced by me as well, Mark Grapengater. To find out more about The Table Project, find us online at thetabledenver.org. If you have questions or comments or know someone who should be a part of these conversations, please email us at hello@thetabledenver.org. A good way to stay a part of these conversations is to subscribe wherever you listen and follow us on Substack at thetableproject.substack.com. May you find yourself at the table of God's grace and invite others to join you there as well. Grace and peace.